Okay, today we're going to work on a Coolpix P530 with a busted lens assembly. You can get a replacement lens assembly on eBay, about $100. Or if you're fortunate enough to have access to Nikon parts, which is almost like asking to meet with God these days, you can get one from Nikon as well. If you're an authorized repair facility, you can. Otherwise, it's probably a huge production. Okay, start by taking out your side panel screws here. We use a regular Phillips screwdriver. We have little tweezers to, whoops-a-daisy, help us pull those out a little bit. Lay them out neatly in the pattern you take them out of the camera. In this particular camera, you really only need to remove the rear shell. You don't have to remove the front of the camera in any way. So just go around the back half of the camera, releasing the screws. Again, lay them out in the pattern you take them out, somewhere nearby where you won't bump them, lose them, or spill them on the floor. Now around to this side. Okay. Alright, that's those guys. Now, we can start wiggling this out. You may need to pop the flash up. There's a little tab right here. You might need to lift up on just a little bit to free the cover. See, and then it comes off pretty easily. Do not pull it out too fast. There's a flex cable here, you will tear. And I bumped the LCD out of position when I took it out too. But there's a little piece of tape that should have been holding this guy here, but it may have been knocked loose when the lens was damaged. There's a small tab right there. Lift that guy up so you can pull the flex cable clear. Okay, then again, this little piece of tape should have been holding that guy right there, but it seems pretty loose, so that may have been jarred when the camera was damaged. Most likely it was dropped, but stuff breaks on its own. Especially the big zooms. They've got a lot of movement, a lot more parts to move around. Okay, another tab for the LCD. Take that guy out again. Lay it where it's supposed to go. Alright, now we're going to take off this plate. And after that, we're going to see the rear of our lens assembly. Okay, and as I'm removing the LCD plate here, there is one of the front screws you need to take out because it holds that piece on there. That guy comes out next. The screws are laid aside. Okay, and now we're starting to see things look pretty familiar here. Okay, as we can see now, we're getting pretty close to where we want to be. Here's our new one. Here's our old one. So, start. There's a couple of screws that basically hold this guy in place. So let's start up top here. Being careful, use a magnetized screwdriver. You try not to drop the screws down into the camera. If you don't have a magnetized screwdriver, get a magnet and just do this. Okay, another tab to lift up. There we go, they just fold up. And you just pull these cables out. This one, if I remember correctly, is one you just have to pry up. Use a plastic tool for this, not something metal. You don't want to jump any contacts, and you don't want to damage anything metal, so just use a plastic tab. Then basically that guy just lifts out of there, and now we just put this guy back in here. And sometimes I forget stuff too. Before you get carried away, you want to make sure the back of this is clean, so I'm going to clear that off. Now if you notice, here's the old one, here's the new one. Little difference here, obviously. This is the camera sensor. You can replace this now, or you can put the lens on and replace it in camera. I usually replace it in camera, but for today's purposes, I'm going to just do it here. So, the first thing you want to make sure is this is clean. Now it should be clean out of the package, but you may drop little bits of dust or something like that on there. The sensor itself is pretty simple. Just take out these screws. And again, lay them out in the way you take them out. Better chance of remembering where they go. Not that this is real complicated here, but okay. Gently lift this up. Set it to the side. Keep it clean. Set it to the side. Now, very carefully, okay, now we got the LCD off, or I'm sorry, the CCD off, or the sensor. Carefully take the next guy, lay it to the side carefully. Then this one you want to be really careful with. You don't want to get it scratched or dirty, so get a clean microfiber cloth and catch it. Take the next piece, which is this guy. Don't drop that piece of glass in your hand. I have it carefully held in that cloth. Don't drop it, don't touch it. There we go. Okay, I got that back in there. Now you want to carefully get that guy back in there. Carefully, trying not very much to drop it or scratch it. Okay. Then the foam seal. And again, not touching anything, particularly that glass. It's easy to leave a mark or a fingerprint on that glass. Last but not least, make sure the sensor's clean. If you get something on there, you can use a microfiber cloth to clean that too. But you want to try not to touch it if you don't have to. Alright, get this guy set back in place. and put your screws back in. Don't fully tighten them till you get them all in. Because you want to get them in and then gradually tighten them a little bit at a time, going around in a circle. Little bit at a time, going around in a circle. That way you won't cause the board to bow, and it should slowly squeeze everything into the right spot. And you want them to be fairly firm. Never force anything. Don't break it. Then we can pick up our whole lens assembly, gradually drop it back into the camera, and line it up. And now do everything in reverse order. And I'll speed this up here in a little bit. But get these screws in first. Same deal. Don't fully tighten them. Get them in there just the way we laid them out. Okay, snug them up. Okay, and then go around in a circle. Okay. Again, carefully reconnect your LCD. I'm sorry, your CCD. Just push that down, it snaps into place. You just want to make sure you have it lined up first and don't force it. Never force anything. And then this guy goes in here. You kind of wiggle them in there a little bit. I'm going to get my curled tweezers here, lets me get a little more guidance on this sucker. Come on, fella. Oh, you dirty rat. Come on. Come on. Oh man, oh man, oh man. See? Even when you've done this before, it's not always as easy as you'd like. There we go. See that? Alright, we got it in there. Then we fold that clip back down. And that folds over like that. Okay. We can get rid of our old one. And we continue to put stuff back. The LCD frame is next. There we go. Come on. Line up where you're supposed to line up, everybody. Remember, this one goes up underneath that corner. You just want to Just gently slide it out of the way, just enough to get the screwdriver in there. Don't push too hard or you'll break it, and that's the last thing you want to do. And then we're working back around with the screws. We laid them out in the order we laid them out. Okay, this fella's a longer one, goes up in this far left corner up here. Usually you see screws that have a small thread on them, what's called a fine thread. They're going to go into metal. The other ones that have the more coarse thread are going to go into something other than metal. In the case of cameras, it's usually plastic. Okay, now it's the last one of that guy. Now we hook up our LCD, being cautious, no breakies. Goes up from the bottom like that. And again, you can use a tweezers. Be careful if you're using a tweezers with a flex cable. You don't want to poke a hole through the cable. I prefer to use my fingers, but sometimes my chubby fingers don't get where I need them to go. And again, you gotta, it's that small space you're wiggling these guys into, so, oh, you dirty rat. So I'm gonna go back to the tweezers. Oh. Make sure that tab's still up. Okay, it's in there. There's little tabs, little tiny tabs on the side. You can push up a little bit. Don't get carried away. It's easy to rip and tear these things. Fold the latch back down.
Call from Win Wally.
Okay. Lay that back over. Also not a bad idea to turn off your cell phone maybe so you don't get distracted. Okay, here we go. Now's a good time to put the tripod plate back in there. And I didn't remember it when I took this apart earlier, but I didn't have to take the screws out of the front part of this camera, so a number of other Nikon cameras you do, so that would not have come out if I remembered that. Who knows? Maybe I'll edit that out of there and pretend I did it right in the first place. Okay, so it's a good time to get that fella back in there. Alright, let's pop our back cover back on. Remember this guy, whoops, I forgot to put our LCD back down over here and put the tape back in place so it stays there. Okay, then remember to reconnect the flex cable. lots of slack on this one. It's a little bit easier to get these in there. The more room you have to work, the easier it is to wiggle them in. He said. Okay. Alright, and then you push that little latch back down, or you can use a tool if you'd like. Okay. Wiggle this guy in here. And being careful again, always careful not to force anything. Pop your flash up. And you might need to give this some guidance. Sometimes you need to move these little tabs because they're the little rubber end that holds them in place catches. Alright, and if you need to lift that up just a little bit to get it to go back in there, you could. Usually you don't. So just press that back in there and down, and that'll lock in place. Okay, put back some of your cosmetic pieces here, which again I took off because I didn't remember if there were screws underneath them or not, and there weren't. So if you have something like this that you're not sure if the tape's gonna hold, just use a piece of double face tape. Okay, so now we're just putting our final screws back in, just in the order of the way we had them laid out. Keep them laid out carefully in a nice pattern, then they're easy to figure out. I jumped ahead a little bit. I already put these two in, got these two, put our little tab back in here before I close that up. And I think I mixed that one up. That one, see, I thought I had it laid out right, and sometimes you don't. That one's a coarse thread screw, plastic. So I probably mixed them up. Okay, remember, don't force anything. Okay, I think that's everybody. Okay, now we put a battery back in this guy, memory card back in this guy, turn it on, see how we did.